straight to the point, sports and entertainment. We live out here, man. I'm gonna wait for y'all to go ahead and come on in, and then for those that rocking with me, y'all can rock with me. If not, y'all can just catch up later. You know how I do, man. Definitely want to talk about this Brian Shaw interview that I seen. Um, I'm gonna talk about a couple of things on it. I'm not gonna spend too much time talking about it though, but I waited for a few people to come in. Make sure you hit the like when you come on in here. Make sure y'all hit that like. Definitely want to get this out in the algorithm. Oh, what's that? That's for tomorrow morning. Oh man. Oh. Mm. Like I said, I'm gonna wait for a couple people to get up in here, man. Then we gonna we definitely gonna unpack this, man. Definitely gonna unpack everything. Uh, so yeah. Cinema. Man, YouTube tripping. Whoever's in here, welcome. I see you in here. Make sure y'all hit that like. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna go in, okay, y'all. Now, and if you missed this, if you missed what I say, just go ahead, rewind it back, play it back, replay game. Um, First and foremost, man, I got to give a shout out to both of the guys that was on there, both And if y'all don't know what I'm talking about the um, podcast P with Paul George, who plays in the NBA, as y'all know now, and also former player and also former coach Brian Shaw, who played with a number of teams. I forgot how many teams Brian Shaw played for. Like, man, I was like, dang, this dude he played for a lot, a lot of teams. But the interview I felt was pretty good. I just want to touch on a couple of points in the interview that I saw. And welcome to whoever's in here. Thanks for hitting that like, man. I appreciate it, man. All right, now look, man. Let's uh let's dive into this, okay? And if you didn't hear what I said in the beginning, I was just waiting for some people to get up in here first, okay? Now I see, like I said, I see one person in here. YouTube tripping about the notifications again, but that's all right. We're gonna work through that, man. Now, first and foremost, Brian Shaw. I always respected Brian Shaw uh, as an NBA player. He was a professional. Uh, that's why he was able to eventually become a coach. I felt like Brian Shaw didn't really get a a longer chance in terms of being a coach in the NBA. I felt like he did a solid job when he was, especially when he was coaching for the Denver Nuggets. It's just unfortunate that he didn't land another head coaching position. Now he was able to he was able to talk about a couple of things with Paul Pierce, not Paul Pierce. I'm sorry, but Paul George, and I felt like it was he laid everything out. It was an epic interview, and I'm gonna put the link to the interview in the description. I'm pretty sure you can find it on YouTube. But the first thing that I want to talk about, the Larry Bird, the experience playing with Larry Bird when he had first came into the league. Okay, now as you know, I do got Larry Bird as my starting small forward, and he pretty much had laid everything out why I have Larry Joe Bird as my small forward. Okay, now I always get I get so many people that go at me as to why I have Larry Bird as my starting small forward, and this is the reason why. Now Brian Shaw was talking about how Larry Bird was the ultimate shit talker. Okay, when it came to anybody on the court. But he had told a story, man, when he was, I think it was him and Reggie Lewis. I guess, they were the rookies on the team. And Larry Bird, at that time, he had called them out to play both Reggie Lewis and Brian Shaw 2-on-1. And Brian Shaw had said that Larry Bird had already was up 6-0. He was already up 6-0 before they started double teaming him. Okay. And this was the older Larry Bird. This was the older Larry Bird that had back problems. This was the Larry Bird that was already pretty much close to being retired, and he was still flaming them two 2-1. I mean, 2-on-1. Okay, and it's funny. I remember that. I remember when I was younger, there was a guy, me and my childhood friend. We played this guy that was in the military, and this guy we played him. It was us two against him, and I mean he whooped our ass 2-1. And that kind of reminded me of what Larry Bird did to them. See, a lot of people don't understand. When they look at Larry Bird now, they look at, oh yeah, he was slow, unathletic, blah 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 blah. You know what I'm saying? But you're not realizing how much versatility is in his game, all with the exception of him being a one-on-one defender. Okay, that was probably the only knock on Larry that I had. Other than that, he pretty much could do everything that everybody else on the court, besides him being hella athletic. But even then, he could dunk too. But it wasn't like he was soaring through the air like Jordan or like LeBron or any of these other guys. He just wasn't athletically gifted like that. But that's why that's one of the reasons why I have Larry Bird as my starting small forward. It was his mentality. He even took it as he had even mentioned this. Brian Shaw had mentioned this too. I'm glad he said this too, right? He said that Larry Bird took offense if you had a white dude guarding him, or you put a white dude on him. I think he was telling a story about how they put it was a guy by the name of Tom Chambers. I don't know if some of y'all are old enough to remember who Tom Chambers was, but Tom Chambers, he pretty good. A lot of people have made a case for Tom Chambers being in the Hall of Fame, because a lot of people got to realize Tom Chambers actually scored more than 20,000 points. So, but that's a whole nother topic. But they put Tom Chambers on Larry Bird, and Larry Bird was having a run-on conversation with a coach by the name of Chris Ford, and because Chris Ford he used to play for the Celtics, and he was like, why? He said, why in the fuck did you put this guy on me? That's what Larry Bird was telling Chris Ford or whatever, and Larry Bird had just cooked him. Just pretty much, he had just iced the jumper right in his face and went down the court shaking his head and stuff. But Brian Shaw had told that story, and see, I'm glad he was able to put that out there, because it showed the mentality of the players back then in comparison to now. And it don't it listen. I want people to understand this, man. It don't take nothing away from some of the talent that you see now. Like I said, everything evolves, everything get better with time. You're gonna you're gonna see a lot more as things progress. Such as the athleticism, such as the speed, all of that. But just think of back then, if they would have had some of the advances in technology in terms of what you could use in order to enhance your some of your abilities, things would be off the charts. And so if you look in comparison to back in the days, they were going based off of their raw ability a lot of times. So when it came to Larry Bird, man, I'm glad he was able to talk about Larry Bird. I mean, he was right about that, man. He was cooking motherfuckers. You know what I'm saying? And it's just the fact. It's one of the reasons why I have him as a starting small forward, and a lot of people don't like that. They're always like, "Well, how could you have Larry Bird over LeBron, or how could you have him over this guy or that guy?" And some people get mad even when I have him over Dr. J, and I'm a Sixers fan. you know, and some people can't understand it, but the reason why I have Larry Bird is because he was the ultimate winner. And on top of that, here's the thing: Larry Bird knew how to play make. He knew how to shoot it, both from the mid range and the 3 point shot. You know what I'm saying? And it's just the fact that Larry Bird could do so much, and a lot of people don't understand that Larry Bird, how good of a rebounder Larry Bird was. He averaged in double figures for rebounds for the. I think I got cut off, but yeah, Brian Shaw was definitely spitting facts, man. I'm glad he was able to lay that out on the line. Now, another thing is, man, that I got to talk about too is when he talked about the Kobe and Shaq, the way that Phil Jackson was coaching both Kobe and Shaq. What's up with it? What's up with it, Kev Cook? I see you in the building, man. What's up with it, bro? How you doing? Um, I just got through talking about Larry Bird, man. You missed it, but basically, I'm talking about the Brian Shaw interview, and basically, Brian Shaw was talking about how Larry Bird was always cooking, and I was just explaining to everybody as to why Larry Bird is my starting small forward. Okay. Um, Also, hold on one second, y'all. Hold on one second. Now, sorry, I'm trouble backing up. Um, like I was saying, the Kobe and Shaq situation, he was saying how Phil Jackson had to coach them differently. Okay, I'm glad he talked about this too because he had talked about how it's different. It's different how coaches would really get in your shit as in comparison to back. Yeah, yeah, definitely. So, what's up with it, Brown Sugar? I see you in the building, sweetie. Yeah, Larry Bird was an all-around type of player. Okay, and I get, I just laugh at people when all they do is they base everything on, okay, yeah, he was unathletic, like that made him his game more diminished or more flawed than say a LeBron James or something like that. Or they look at the fact that Larry Bird, he's nowhere near up there in terms of scoring, with LeBron or anything like that, and they try to bring that as a case as to why LeBron was so much better than Larry Bird, or they think that he was so much better at defense than Larry Bird and everything. And don't get me wrong, LeBron might have had an edge on him in terms of a defender, but it wasn't so much as like it wasn't like LeBron was this elite on ball defender. He wasn't. You could only say that for maybe the 2 years that he was in Miami. You know what I'm saying? But they always use this chase down block as something to kind of compare him to Larry Bird and stuff like that. And I think I think it's just so funny, you know. But they don't understand that when it's like what Brian Shaw was saying. Larry's mentality, even at an older age, even with the back problems, even with everything else, Kevin Cook and Brown Sugar, he was still head and shoulders above everybody. Had he not had back problems and had he not had some of the injuries that he had, Larry Bird would have been able to play longer. And people don't understand how unselfish he was. Now, there's going to be people that sit up there and say, "Oh yeah, well he talked a lot of shit and all that other stuff," but Brian Shaw would tell you he was a great teammate. He was a prankster and everything else. You didn't hear any bad things about Larry Bird when it came out of Brian Shaw's mouth, and people were expecting that. Let's look at the comments. I remember growing up playing up in a playground. Every say bird for three. Yeah, I'm saying Kareem with the sky hook was yeah, yeah, man. You could definitely cook with either of those, man. Yeah, the hook. I kind of wish the hook would come back, man. But it it's like right now, if you do a sky hook or something like that, or you see a big man doing a sky hook or something like that, people they're like, man, what is this guy doing? But if you learn to do it right, because Shaq utilized the hook. It might have not been like Kareem. Even Andrew Bynum had utilized the hook. I'm trying to think of some. Greg Oden, even though his career didn't last that long, Greg Oden used the hook. Dwight Howard tried to tried his best to use the hook, although it didn't work. And you know what, Dwight Howard, man. I know I'm getting off the subject here, but I got to talk about that for just a second. Kareem tried to work with Dwight Howard. Kareem tried to work with Dwight Howard, but it just wasn't going to work. There were several people that tried to work with Dwight Howard, and most noticeable was Hakeem Olajuwon and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, two of the greats to do it. But he never was able to develop, that go-to post move. So yeah, the sky hook, man, it does need to make a comeback, man. It's funny that you bringing that up, Kurt. That's real old school. But anyways, man, to get back to what I was talking about though, uh, he was talking about how Phil Jackson had to coach Shaq, and he had to coach Kobe differently. And I like the comparison that Brian Shaw had brought up, man, with Kobe. All right, now he said that with Shaq came from a military background. Okay, if you did, then you can relate to this, right? He was saying how Shaq was, you had to really talk to him. You know what I'm saying? Real stern. Getting his shit. You know what I'm saying? And make sure that he followed and carried out the orders and followed directions and stuff. That's what type of background that he came from, because his stepfather, God rest his soul, that's how he raised Shaq. You know what I'm saying? To do what you told, carry out orders and everything. Just strong military background. Well, he had, he had brought up Kobe, his background being the fact that his father had played in the NBA, Joe Bryant, and then of course Kobe had grew up with sisters and stuff, and he was used to getting away with pretty much everything. You know what I'm saying? And really didn't stay on him. You weren't on him like that, and he was able to pretty much go crazy. Well, he said that's what Phil Jackson was able to do, because he said it's like the mentality of, I don't know if any of y'all have pets or anything, but I used to raise German Shepherds. It's funny that he brought up German Shepherd. He said he had he raised German Shepherds. Well, he said, like, when they're puppies, and you're training a guard dog like a German Shepherd, you can't, you're not supposed to discipline them harshly, you know what I'm saying, as opposed to when they get older or whatever, because you have to let them loose, because that's how they get their crazy, and that's how they develop their mentality. Well, Phil Jackson did the same thing with Kobe, and it worked. And he let loose he let Kobe be who he was and everything. You know what I'm saying? And it worked for them. It might have took a little time, but it worked. So he had to coach them differently. He wasn't as hard on Kobe as he was on Shaq in terms of the way that he was coaching him. And I thought that that was real interesting. I thought that that was very interesting because I would have thought that it was the other way around. Now I'm pretty sure. Now he did say that he brought up some other coaching examples, like when it came to Greg Popovich. He said Popovich didn't. He didn't. He didn't pretty much. He didn't put anybody above the other. You know what I'm saying? He treated everybody the same. He would get in Tim Duncan shit. He would get in Mono shit. Uh, uh, Tony Parker, even David Robinson. You know what I'm saying? Everybody got the smoke whenever it came to discipline, and that's what I like. That's what you had to respect with a guy like Popovich. That's what he was saying. And I always thought that Brian Shaw, man, like I said again, man, I don't. For those of y'all that's coming in there, man, please hit the like, man. Please hit that like. Welcome in. And if you don't know what I was talking about, man, y'all gotta rewind, but or play it back, whatever. But I always felt like Brian Shaw should have got more of a chance at coaching. Or I still believe in him as a coach, man. I still believe in him as a coach, just like Mark Jackson. So yeah, man. Oh, and this is another thing too. This was another thing. I'm glad he talked about what happened with the situation with Latrell Sprewell and PJ Carlissimo. I think I touched on that in the video. Let me talk about that for just a second. Now, this was something that, see, you got to think about it. I was young, and I wasn't as mature then as I am now. But back then, okay, I did not know that they had a gag order on the players not to speak about the PJ Carlissimo and Latrell Sprewell incident, okay? And he was able to tell Paul George that in the interview. He said the reason why nobody really could talk about it was because there was a gag order that was set, and they weren't able to talk about what was going on. So, when I was young, all you saw was, the choke, the prints where Latrell Sprewell had choked PJ Carlissimo, and of course, Latrell Sprewell ended up getting suspended for the entire year. That, man, they made Latrell Sprewell, man, look like this, like criminal and stuff like that. But they didn't want to talk about the fact of how PJ Carlissimo was. Brian Shaw, I'm glad he shedded light on this, man. I'm telling y'all, this is an epic interview. Y'all really got to go watch this. And shout out to Paul George, man. Paul George, his podcast is a slept on podcast. Everybody's talking about all these, like I like watching like the Pivot podcast. I'm still going to talk about that Mayweather interview. I haven't forgot about that. Everybody talking about, of course, Club Shay Shay. Everybody's talking about, Gil's Arena. That's pretty good. But nobody's talking about, Podcast P, man. That is a dope podcast. But to get back to what I was saying, Brian Shaw really laid everything out about what truly happened. And I always had my suspicions about that PJ Carlissimo situation. He had said that PJ Carlissimo was cursing at the the players. I mean, saying all types of disrespectful stuff to them and everything. And I think what really got up under kind of his skin was when Latrell Sprewell, back then they had a dress code that they had to abide by or whatever. and the players had to abide by that dress code. Well, Latrell Sprewell, he never abided by the dress code, and PJ Carlissimo called himself, I guess, trying to get in Latrell Sprewell's face or whatnot one time or whatever, and Latrell Sprewell had his headphones on. Well, Latrell Sprewell took his headphones off or whatever, and Latrell Sprewell, he had said that Latrell Sprewell had already had did the math on how much it was gonna be if he was fined. I think it was like 500. He said there was like 43 road games or something like that, and it was $500 each time that he didn't dress up. Well, he had multiplied all that, and he said, look, and he just took off his headphones and he said, look, motherfucker, I'm only going to tell you one time. He said, it's going to be this amount of money. I think he tallied it up or whatever. And he said, look, just charge me at the end of the year. Other than that, he said, get the fuck out of my face. I'm not talking about this shit no more with you or something like that. You know what I'm saying? It's all on the podcast. But after that, I guess that rubbed PJ Carlissimo already more than what he had already been the wrong way. And so in practice one day, Latrell Sprewell, because Latrell was, man, back then Latrell was nice, man. Latrell was hella athletic, man. I mean, coming out of Alabama, man, that dude was nice, man. That dude was nice. I can't even lie to you. Man, even like the Golden State Latrell Sprewell, that's who I like. I didn't really. I mean, the Minnesota Latrell was all right, and the what you call the New York Latrell Sprewell was all right, but Golden State Latrell Sprewell was cold. So, anyways, man, to get back to it, Latrell Sprewell had finished his drills. He finished his drills. Okay, he finished his drills. And I guess the other players were, shooting or whatever, and he was done doing what he did. And Coach Carlissimo started yelling at him or whatever. And he said, "Man, I'm already finished with the drill or something like that." And PJ Carlissimo called himself getting into his face or whatever, and started yelling at him and cursing at him or whatever. Man, that's when Latrell Sprewell had took off on him. And see, he was saying some disrespectful stuff to Latrell Sprewell. And look, I understand, like, with coaching and stuff like that, it's good to be, a hard coach, but there's a difference between coaching in the NBA and coaching at the collegiate level and coaching at high school. You know what I'm saying? You might be able to get away with some of that shit like that you do in high school and in college in terms of coaching and stuff like that. But when you go to the NBA, all of these guys will tell you, man, you coaching grown men, and that's why what's the name, Brian Shaw, he gives a lot of credit to Phil Jackson. Not necessarily for his X's and O's or anything like that, but the way that he was able to manage personalities, because he had to deal with Kobe and Shaq, and of course he had to deal with Jordan and Pippen, and to a lesser degree, he had to deal with Melo in New York and all of that stuff, man. But man, this was an epic interview, man. I just thought I'd go live and talk about it, man. Like I said, if you haven't seen it, I'm gonna put the link to the full podcast in the description so that y'all can take a look at it, man. And I just thank y'all for pulling up, man. Like I said, man, I'm gonna bust out again with a couple more lives or whatever. But I want to hear y'all thoughts and opinion, man. if you weren't able to, tap in right now, man, let me know. Let me know what y'all think, man. Make sure y'all share this video. I appreciate the likes, appreciate the love, the support. Make sure y'all hit them notifications too as well. And again, straight to the point, sports and entertainment, man. I'll get at y'all later.